Welcome back then folks to the second build of Special Projects pack number 18 of course, and this one is, as I often like to do with cars from other games, often you'll see like Forza throwback builds or Gran Turismo older throwback builds. This one is, I believe, the first, well maybe not the first actually, it's probably one of a couple of builds that I've done as throwbacks to the DiRT series. If I recall correctly, I think the Porsche GT Rally build which I did, and yeah, now that I think of it, of course a couple of the Mustang and Camaro style rally cars were also throwbacks to DiRT 2.0. This one is as well, not just DiRT 2.0, but I believe the first DiRT game as well, the 205 GTi Rally Car. Turns out you can get exactly the right numbers, which is 175 horses, 875 kilos, and as you'd assume with those numbers being fairly modest, you don't actually have to do very much to this car, so it's kind of a perfect beginner's special project build, if you will. You can do this on a shoestring budget, just pick up a 205 and just do a couple of things to it. We've got the sports brake pads, of course it has the comfort mediums anyway. We are going off-road though, of course, so jump into the club sports stuff. We've got the high lift cams. If I just jump into the ultimate section, yeah, I had a slight recollection that the high lift S cams cancel that out, of course, so just go for that one. Back over to the club sports though, we've got the sports discs, the clutch and flywheel. You don't actually need the ballast and the power restrictor. Of course you do though need the dirt and or snow tyres, depending on where you're going to take it. For the semi-racing, the fully customised ECU, the diff, I've gone for the manual box with the full customisation. Again, you want that old school kind of vibe, plus gives you a nice little point level advantage as well, and when it doesn't have a huge amount of power that could come in handy. I have opted to increase the body rigidity on this car. For the racing stuff, we've got the air filter, silencer, manifold, and the fully customised suspension. As far as the extreme stuff, to the surprise of no one, of course, the steering angle adapter and the hydraulic handbrake, both to aid in manoeuvrability. And we already jumped into the ultimate section, so you can see what we did there. Now with dirt tyres, as you can see, it's just under, a hair under 480 points. I will say, before we go out to the track, kind of a mini spoiler, it's not the quickest of things around, but I don't think you'd expect it to be. And for those who have played DiRT or DiRT 2.0, you'll probably remember that this car was not the quickest of things. It's a great little car, but it's very much within its own category in the game, that kind of lower level historic stuff. In fact, if I recall, I think it might have been, what, H2, maybe, something like that category. I think it was like the second lowest, somewhere around there. But we've got the dirt tyres fitted. As far as the suspension, 110mm front and rear, 5 on the anti-roll, 25 and 35 for the dampers, 2.75 for the springs. Bit of a difference in camber front and rear, none on the back, 1 degree on the front. As far as the toe, super hefty on, well, I'm saying super hefty actually. It's 0.10 in on the front, which I guess isn't that hefty really, and 0.0 in on the rear as well, actually, of 0.5, which is probably not what you'd be expecting, but I do find that this car gets a little bit squirrely over the back end if you don't give it a bit of toe. As far as the diff, I've gone for 555. That works pretty well for me, but of course, give it a try and see what you think. As far as the transmission, 220, so pretty close ratios, not crazy close. You could lower that and tighten it up a bit more if you feel the need. And as far as the rest here for, restrictions and ballast, you don't need to do any of that. And over here, it's pretty simple as well. Much like the 911 Sport Classic build from earlier on today, it's a pretty affordable one, except the difference is this car is like, what, a third of the price or something like that? I can't remember the price of the GT3. This has got to be at least a third of the price, at like 60 grand usually in the used dealer. So now, of course, we'll jump out to the dirt and show you what it can do in practice. Now, as far as using this car and what to expect from it, I think you can kind of tell, as is often the case with the Forza builds, and you'll see another one of course later this week for the Dulac NSX. These are more so about like the fun nostalgia throwback rather than necessarily being the quickest thing around. Some of them end up being really quick anyway. Probably one of the most notable ones was the Forza 1 edition of the Subaru, which I did, which is a bonkers car, kind of like an FQ400 in some ways. This one, nowhere near. This isn't even on the board. In terms of lap times, it's no way near the other lap times that I've done here, the other builds that I've done here, so don't expect the world from it. It's 100% a novelty build, which is super fun to drive. So what I would recommend is maybe build it as I have, and then duplicate the tuning setup into a second sheet, and then you could give it more power if you want to, or drop the weight even more. So then you can switch between whether you want this version or an even more powerful version. The only thing to bear in mind there is, of course, once you fit stuff that can't be reversed, like, boring out the engine, then you cannot come back to these numbers. So if you want to do that, do it with caution if you want to switch back and forth between the two, but for fellow dirt fans, it's probably my favourite physics of any rally game, to be honest. It's a nice little throwback to probably one of the most fun cars in that game, certainly in the lower levels. So if you decide to use it, of course I hope you enjoy it. Check out the 911 from earlier on today, and of course the projects coming up for the rest of the week. But for now, thanks for watching.